So my name is Mikela Williams. My disease is called ornithine transcarbamylase deficiency, or commonly known as OTC. I currently reside in North Carolina, and I am a carrier, but I'm also symptomatic. So I was diagnosed when I was 12 years old. So I was first, like I said, diagnosed at 12 when I became sick in the hospital. With that, they did do genetic testing on me, and that's when they did confirm that I did have OTC. Women are less likely, or not as severe, because we have the two X's. Males are more severely affected. For me, some women can go not on medication, not on anything. For me, I am on medication and a low protein diet, and having to adapt kind of what I am. For boys, because they only have the one X, it more severely affects them in a lot of ways. A lot of boys don't make it past a few days of life. Most boys have to get a liver transplant after they're born. So it's just kind of keeping them stable enough to get to that liver transplant. But I have met a lot of people who have unfortunately lost boys in the process of trying to grow their family. I didn't really learn too much about my options until I was actually pregnant, because when I was seeing my doctor, it was more so of how do we prevent pregnancy, making sure you're on birth control, as opposed to, or kind of like what could happen if you have a boy, as opposed to here are your options if you choose to do that route. And so when I was pregnant, I was kind of knowledgeable somewhat. Sorry, I have my son with me. But when I did see the doctor, they did kind of tell me my options, and it wasn't till I was kind of more further along that I was learning more of like CVS, amnio, all of that. And so I wish kind of they would have gone over that a little sooner for me. I ended up getting a blood test, which you can usually get done around 8 to 10 weeks. I got it done at about 10 weeks to find out the gender, because it's so intense for boys who are affected. First step was finding out, is it a boy, is it a girl? And so I did do the blood test to find out the gender. And from there, I had to kind of decide where to go. So I did find out he was a boy. And so I had three options. It was kind of, do I terminate? Do I do the CVS route, which you can find out as early as 10 weeks, or do I choose the amnio? So ultimately, I did choose the amnio. Reasons behind that, well, there's lots of reasons, but for me, I came with the decision of, okay, I have this information, it's boy. Do I want to consider keeping or not keeping with the information? Ultimately, I chose to keep the pregnancy regardless of if he was going to have the disease or not have the disease. And so I felt amnio was the best option for me, because there's less risk of miscarriage. And I personally, a lot of people would like that information sooner than later. I wanted to wait to get that information if he did have the disease. I didn't want that added stress to my pregnancy of the what if, is he going to make it if he was diagnosed with it. So well, one of the biggest challenges was during COVID. So going through that whole process, I had to do it alone. Like, I wasn't allowed a support person at the actual getting the amnio done. One thing that was kind of challenging too was because he wasn't a planned pregnancy, so I didn't have this plan set in place, but I knew I needed a high risk OB. So I had to go through the logistics of insurance, see a regular OB, to then be transferred to a specialist, to then wait for them to see me, to then order the tests. It delayed the process a little longer than I would have hoped. Like I didn't get the blood test done until a little later than I wanted to. I almost didn't go see my high risk OB until they wanted to see me at 12 weeks, but I kept calling and calling and calling, trying to get in sooner, which did help. But because of that, those are some things I wish I would have been able to change to kind of smooth the process by a little bit more with that. So. I would have advocated for myself a little bit more and stood up more of like, I know what I have. This is what I need. I feel like I was a little scared and overwhelmed. And so I'm more of a quiet person. I kept a little quiet. And in regards to the doctors, I had a lot of doctors, even since I didn't find out that he ultimately didn't have it until I was over, I think, 22 weeks. Up until that point, I had doctors being like, are you sure you want to continue this pregnancy? And I, from the beginning, wanted to, regardless of the results. And so I wish I would have been like, I'm continuing. Please don't bring it up anymore. Like, I don't want to constantly feel like I'm being persuaded against what I want. So more so the advocating and kind of that aspect, and just kind of telling myself, it'll be okay. Like, you've got this, you're strong. Like I said, advocate for yourself, because I feel like there's a lot of pressure, whatever choice that moms choose to make or whichever direction, is theirs. And I feel like everyone around you seems to have an opinion, or they may not be telling you their opinion, but they're suggesting and whatnot. And it ultimately is your decision. Whatever decision that is, it's yours. And don't be ashamed of what choice that is.